everyone, so I've re-uploaded the video to YouTube because the Patreon, I've uploaded 4K and it looks like 720p. So I've joined both tutorials, like the part 1 and part 2, and put them together on YouTube in 4K. So hopefully this will be better experience. And there's a bit of a gap because I was working on this project file for a while and I was testing different ripples. So I explain everything throughout the way, and if you have any question, feel free to reach out. But all the info that you need to build out a scene and to animate, it's there. And only thing that I didn't explain is the cursor animation that I've covered in previous videos on my Patreon. So hopefully you enjoy this one, and sorry for the bad quality. I didn't know that Patreon kind of changed that because before I didn't have issues with that. But yeah, let's do this.
Hey, welcome back. So I have this image. I would like to create something similar. We're going to be focusing on how to create this folded material and how to have a device lay on that, and then have this kind of pedestal with little details around some organics. We are in new cinema. I'm experiencing all sort of different bugs there, but hopefully it will be fine. Let's start with building this pedestal, and we can also have a separate file where we're gonna build these folded sheets. So we can start with those, then have a kind of phone like. We're gonna start with plane, and this plane I'm just gonna switch to ND just so I can see the polygons. We're gonna start by making it in simulation tags collider. So I'm just click on collider, making it collider, and bring in another plane and lift it up and rotate it like that, and press T for scale. I'm just gonna make it smaller, so it's something like that. And then, you know, I'm gonna increase the subdivision and height, but the width, just gonna say like 2, and then in height I'm gonna make it, I don't know, 30. Actually, it should be rotated like that. And then in width, you can do 70 and 180 in height. And then if we put cloud tag on it, if we press play, nothing happened for me because I need to go Control D into simulation, scene, and gravity, and click on this arrow to reset. So right click it and it will reset. And now we can see it's folding. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna reduce the bendiness. So I'm just gonna reduce the bendiness to like 1. And now it's folding this way. So maybe we can make it a little bit taller. We'll see how much we can go to retain some interesting shapes. I'm just gonna have to lift it a bit higher. I'm just gonna lift it above that ground, and that's kind of an interesting shape. I kind of like it already. So what we can do, we can maybe increase the level of height segments to like 50. Let it fall again. The reaction is a little bit different. So we're gonna do 40. Okay. So this it's really good. I like it. And let's fold multiple of those at once. So let's say we have one like that. It can be a little bit different. And copy that over there. Can decrease the segment. And that one will fall later. And we'll let it simulate all together. So I kind of like it. I'm gonna put this one in the middle. So at this point, you know, I would be like, this is it. It's kind of good. And we have 3 different planes. So what I'm gonna do this one, just gonna increase the segments even more. Just gonna see how it's folding. If I get some nice shape. So I'm just gonna drag this a little bit down. Let it start sooner. And I'll also tilt this a little bit this way and a little bit this way. Just gonna make sure there's no intersections, and then simulate it again. There's also multiple ways to go about it. I can put all these planes, Alt G, and we can bake it as Alembic. For the purpose of texturing, I can actually put them normally into connect object. So I would Alt, make it parent, and then I would bake that as Alembic. But I would love to keep the separate option for texturing these. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna bake these as Alembic all at once, and we'll see if I get 3 different Alembics. So that's the best solution for me. And I can put Alt G, and I can turn this one off, grab this and move this into my scene. Now we can put it into subdivision surface, and this basically make it much nicer. And we already can see where we can place the phone. So to place our phone, we kind of need to know, just so it's easy for us to kind of navigate. We'll find out. We have 11702536. I'll save this, and I have this iPhone. So I will create plane that is 1170262536. So this would be our iPhone. If I look into from the front projection, have a segments like that, and then I can press C and go into the point mode and highlight these, and then bevel them, pressing MS. And you bevel, you increase subdivision and create some sort of rounded shape. And this plane will be called phone. So we can take this and then place it here. And it's obviously massive, but the ratio works. So we can scale it proportionally until it works here. Or we can rotate it. So we can place it here or here. Just gonna do 90 degrees, lift it up, and rotate it like that. And I can see that, I can place it. And I can put it into thicken modifier. So thicken object, and have it like that. And this will allow us to texture the front and texture sides differently. So I'm just gonna rotate it a little bit like that. And then we'll take those two and put them a little bit higher up. I will create platform which is gonna be on that. To create that platform, we'll just use simple cube, stretch it, make the smaller cube, make it taller. And then we can turn on the fillet on these, make it quite large. And then we'll put it into Alt G and put it into volume builder. Now we decrease the vocal size and we put it into volume measure. So again, Alt holding and putting into volume measure. And that will be our kind of platform that's going to be on top of that. I can press ND to reveal how is it going to be. It's quite good. I can put it into remesh, and then I can put it into connect object and press C. I can create folder for this one. we call archive. Gonna turn it off and duplicate this and copy that into that folder. And then we press C, so we can always come back to it. Go to platform. Just create plain. And then leave that platform and all of these above, just so it sits nicely. We can change our width to 1080 1350, so it's 4x5. This is much better composition for this type of render. We can create a background, so backdrop. We'll grab that platform and rotate it 90. We're just gonna take that backdrop, reduce the rounding, and move it. Maybe not that one, but maybe move the whole thing slightly back there. So now that we have this, we can look into texturing the whole thing and bring some lights and then add additional elements that would help to seal the deal. The first thing that comes to mind is, the camera, and I will maybe increase it to 135 just to get more compression, and I'm gonna lock it using protection tag. And now I cannot move my camera, so I create a new camera, Control-C, Control-V. I'm gonna call it Flycam, so I have a same focal length there, so when I look through that, it will still give me the same compression, so I can judge things better. And we can start by looking into making this look good. So I'm just gonna put this Flycam here, and backdrop, we're gonna put it in our scene, and then thicken is gonna be our phone, and this is gonna be our fault. So I'm just gonna put them into objects, and then platform, we'll put them into our scene, so it's part of the scene. And then we can open up the bridge, and we can look into importing some grass. So I'm just gonna import this into Cinema. So I'm just gonna need a little bit of that. I'm just gonna keep like these and bring in matrix scatter and change this mode to object. For the object, I'm gonna choose platform. So I'm scattering now on our platform. So if you look at this, I'm scattering objects on our platform. If I increase the count, everything's here. So I'm just gonna take these 4. I'm just gonna move them out of the way. So we're scattering onto this platform, and I'm gonna have all of these. You can change the draw size just so you see better how it's looking, and you can control if you have too many of those. Sometimes you have 20,000, and if it's too big, you want to change the draw size. And now we want to control where this is going to grow. So we can use a plane effector, and it will lift all our matrices up. So it's a default up. So we're going to get rid of that. I'm going to go to scale, uniform, and press -1. So now it's nowhere. And I can go into fields and go into spherical field. And now I can control where it's going to grow with this sphere. Only thing we see is just it only grows where the sphere is not. So we're just going to reverse that by using the modifier, and we're going to put invert there. So now we're only growing, where is it? So I'm just going to make this field smaller and just put it here on the side, and I can increase the amount to like 6,000. So we're going to have like these kind of shrubs there. To change it to shrubs, we're going to go to the object, redshift object tag on that matrix and change it to custom objects, and drag these by highlighting them all with shift and clicking back on that object and just dragging them in. So now the part of that, we're just going to change the scale multiplier to 0.5, and now we have shrubs on the side. Now they have very weird kind of placement. We can go to transform and then -90, and it will adjust. So this is something that we need to do when we're importing from Bridge. Let's have a look if we can import a couple more things to make it more interesting, to have something more like a cotton grass. That will be good. And then I'll click on that redshift matrix and go to particles and drag all of them in there. I can also make these smaller, just so I see how they, look there, or bigger, depending on like how big them I want to be comparison with this. I can maybe reduce a couple of those. Actually, I'm gonna delete them from here, go in there, look into if this still works. Yeah, so a combination of different flowers, and we'll be able to change their material. So I'm just gonna put them into the same metric, so it's hidden under the same metrics. I'm just gonna put all of them here. That works. So now only regarding these, I'm just gonna move them out of the way. So let's go into lighting now. So I'm gonna switch to my main cam. So this is the position I chose initially. I'm gonna move my render here just so I get bigger idea on what am I doing, and then bring in some light. So I'm gonna bring a dome light here and drag it into our lights. The dome light's fine. I'm just gonna, so 1714, it's quite intensive and saturated, so I'm just gonna reduce the saturation on this so I get more neutral light, and then reduce the exposure, or we can reduce the gamma here, and just so we not get such a bright sun, and we get more kind of subtle look that we can then finalize with the other lights. So if I can reduce the exposure now, we get this kind of nice environment lighting, but we still have a room to bring in spotlight and create something more interesting. So I'm just going to rotate this spotlight, lift it up, shoot some at this platform, and I'm going to go into the texture of this and bring in animated gobos. I go by Zach. Moody Palms. I have EXRs, and he changed it to JPEG, but don't worry, if you have JPEGs, it's the same thing. A lot of people ask me like, how come I have EXRs? And I have no idea. I kind of downloaded maybe the first thing, and then maybe like change it. So I'm just gonna move it in Z space a little bit. So I have this light on the platform, and so I kind of get a part of the phone, and then I feel like there should be another light behind, so we get some nice light in the background. So I'm just gonna move it behind that platform. So that's kind of good. I'm gonna change this area light to disk and reduce the exposure here, and maybe move it here, just so it's kind of highlights the phone. That's even better. So this could be our kind of starting lighting. I'm gonna move this light over here, and the matrix is our grass. So I'm just gonna call it grass. I always love to have it, everything that is there included. So objects, so we have scene, objects, and lights. So we can start by going into these objects and go into these folds, and we have 3 planes that we can texture respectively. So I can go into my materials, so you can find them on my Dropbox link on a Patreon, or you can purchase them in Gumroad if you support me that way. So we have this glimmer material, and we can scale noise because it's really tiny. So I can scale this as well, scale this a lot, like 200. Maybe we use this material for others. So we have some purple there at the back, and then for this big one, we're gonna use something that has, I don't know if I can use something from here as well. I'll have a look if I can use this gum. Can't even see it in that way, so I'm just gonna remove that protection tag and try to find a bit better angle where I can see more of these materials being there. So maybe this would be kind of better way where I can see still some faults, and then I'll look it back again. For the other material, we can use something with a grid. So I like to use these colorful plastics, or we could use one of this pattern plastic. So I'm just gonna make sure this is node and import it and put it as a plane too. So now I have another material there, and go into the settings, change the color, some blue, and then we can click on that material and tile 2 by 2 to get more kind of refined look. What I like to do is to bring in some transparency there. So we're going to go to transmission and increase transmission. And we can also go into that color, bring in ramp and plug it into color and go from that purple to blue, just so we have some interesting. We can also go and increase thickness. So I can put thickener on those creases, and right now you see it's kind of a lot. It's not bad. It looks good. Let's try 2. It's still, I like it. And if we do 0.5, that should be just above lovely thickness, but also it's not overly crazy. Okay, so let's say we have that, and then we have that pedestal. But for pedestal, I was thinking we could use something like chalk. So this material 26 can apply to that pedestal, which will give me a little bit of that kind of marble look. But I can look into that pedestal and maybe scale the noise, make it slightly more recognizable. Oh, this is much better. So I like it because there's a thin film layer and it creates different reflections on each spec. So there, it's going to work nicely. And I'm going to texture our phone. I haven't done that before, but I've seen that in Grayscale Gorilla tutorial. So we're going to look into that phone now. And we use the modifier there, and we have selections here. So let's do polygon size. So I was using edge selection. So obviously we cannot use edge selection. So I should be reading this first. So this is a polygon shell, and then we can press C, and then we have it here. So if I put a glimmer glaze on the phone, so now we can place that tag on there, and will only affect the sides, which is perfect. So that worked, and that will always make you happy when things work. And now, only thing you need to do is apply the texture, another material on that phone, and that will get applied in this ratio. And if I look into that reference, we have some objects here and some fabric here. So that will be good to kind of test these out. If I would be turning this off and leave that pedestal only, I can bring in fabric, plain like that, make it narrow, not that long, and increase segments to 100 by 100, and then bring in field force. I'll make the platform collider, and then we have that fabric simulate with the field force. And if I could press play, this again, no gravity, so I have it by default. Now I need it all the time. Funny. So, and now we put the cloth tag on that plane. We need to put collider on that too. We need to put it on the backdrop. I'm gonna copy that, control. I copy the cloth tag on it too. So I'm just gonna make sure the plane. I'm just gonna switch to flycam. Looking at it from the top, I can see that I could use much more realistic and push it back here. Maybe make it still like that. Maybe we don't even need that. Field force, I can use random field. Increase it and go to object and increase the size. So field, random field. I don't need to see that. And go into that tag as well and reduce the bendiness. Okay, let's say current state to object. So we have a plane, can delete this field force. We have a fabric here. I'm just going to drag it into our objects. So we have a fabric, and onto that fabric, I can go into that into those materials, HK fabrics, and drag one of the fabrics onto it. I'm going to increase the thickness here by adding the thicken object, make it 0.3 and lift it slightly up, and then look into that scale pattern, make it like 2, and then we'll go into the length of U. I'm just gonna try to find that nice patterning. I can turn everything back in and switch to my main cam. And you see you have some sort of fabric here. It's not bad. Could be different color. Could be something more subtle. Just white fabric there. Maybe for that platform, maybe for the backdrop, we can use something from Cinema. So I'm just going to use plaster wall. Can use the basic plaster. I don't know what I'm allowed to use. I'm not allowed to use any of the Maxon stuff. I use this 440 plaster. So this will give me some texture to the wall. And I can also maybe go back to Flycam, have some plane and make it 160 by 90. So 16 by 9. Turn it like 90 degrees. If you know how. And then just have it in the background. On the side, I can scale it up. Go into my matte. Go put one of those 16 by 9 materials. So I can use this one, for example. And then go back into that main cam and see if it works. So first thing I see, I could maybe move this onto the other side just to have like or have it on top, have it fill up this kind of a top range. So some sort of display work there. I don't know how far I can push it. I can use thicken and go to object, make it like 0.2, just so we get some thickness to it. And we obviously change the matte color to some bright. And this one will change something to blue, just so we complement that scene. Now I don't know if I can place it maybe here. And then we can bring in, oh, I completely forgot about our phone. Needs to be kind of that alembic works here. So let's say frame 25, we need to go into those alembics. So if I go into Fault Alembics and I say don't use animation, use frame 25, and they will stay static. So that's something I forgot. This is resolved now. If we look at our reference, we've kind of nailed almost everything. I kind of like this, where this go. We can have some sort of cube here and making it as a part of the scene. So if I push it back here, it goes into the wall, and then we can give it some texture. We can use some of the work materials or one of the materials already created. So if I create like a TBD, it will give us like a gradient, which I like. We can just change the color of this. Now I don't like to see that corner there, so I put something in there, and this would be one of the, any models that you have, little doodads. So we can use some funky totems here, like something like this. We can use our placement tool. So if I go back into the object mode, click on the placement tool, I can click into that corner, make it bigger, and apply some of the materials on this. And you can obviously play with it, like let's say Glitzfire. So we have the pillar and the doodad, it'll drag them into the objects. And then for the lighting, I think we can still use one more light. So I'm just going to bring in Aria light, shifted 90. Make it smaller. And put it on the on the x-axis. A little bit there on the side. And make it more narrow. So kind of reduce that spread. I'm just going to go into fly cam just so I see what I'm doing. If I go back into the main cam, I can still push it here. To kind of reduce that light in the corner and get some sun rays, like the light rays into that glassy element. So I can see that doodad needs a little help there. So I'm just gonna go, you see it's a little bit spec, so we're just gonna increase the scale a lot. Now one thing that left, we're just gonna open up Figma. So if I look into actually these layers, we can have different frames here. So if I click on the frame, I can do phone, iPhone 14. And then we place it in there. So we see that it works. So we can do ×4, 4×3, export PNG. And then if we go back to our project, we can create new material. I'm going to switch on back my use node materials for preset. So when I create new material, it's node-based material, and apply this to our phone. Now the phone gets replaced the whole. So I can now switch off these materials, and then I'm going to bring in texture. I'm going to plug it into color, and I'm going to also plug it into emission color. So when I go to emissions, I'm going to bring it to like 0.9, and then I bring in code. So we get like some sort of glassy display. We can also do that. I'll highlight the phone, go into the polygon mode, and the UF. So we will fill, hold Control Shift, and keep clicking from corner to corner, and then press UF and fill just this part of the selection. Then Y, and it will grow the selection. So now highlight the display. I can say store selection. So you can bring Shift-C, store selection. I have it already in my panel. So we have a store selection. And this will create new polygon, and I will just use it for only my display. So this way I get back to refine it, just because when you layer materials over, you could see there was some material coming through. Now it's absolutely fine. I just want to see how we doing with the bevel on the phone. So if I do bevel here, and I do only 0.05, I will create some sort of weird. So that's the only thing, but we could do it with the rounded corners. So if I don't do bevel and then I click on that material, I think we are able to bring round corners and plug them into the bump map. It still does the thing. I should be radius only 0.1. And this is also the texture is all I could mirror. Gonna have to reverse this texture, or what we simply do is to switch to the object mode and reverse the iPhone. Get rid of this polygon selection, get rid of this. So this is now correct. And we see that we still have some issues there. So I'm just going to do it faster this time. Hopefully we UF. So I'm going to fill in the selection. So hold shift and just click in. So it will automatically, when you press UF, you see still I have on the cursor that fill function. Okay, so now I store selection, put it on the phone, display, and this way I get the full edge. Okay, so now let's say this is the scene. Now we can see after our initial render, it's not bad at all. We can see some issues here, and we also maybe can reduce the thickness overall of that material. Maybe we can reduce the shadow here just to bring it close to the wall. And it's overall like it's too bright, too white. And same goes for display. So what we can do to that, we can click into that texture, and we have auto sRGB, but we can play with the gamma to kind of get more saturation in there, or I need to actually turn it back on. So as you can see, if I put it in like the 1.7, we get a little bit more saturation in there. So it's more of a, if I look into that material, we have a code as well. So we can fake that glass on top of that. Can reduce the color of that code to like gray to get those reflections there. And then we'll reduce the thickness of those folds. So thicken 0.2, 0.05, and then go into that material that we applied, that plane one. So this is a redshift displacement, and we can reduce the height of that displacement to 0.2. So that was causing us those distortions, maybe 0.1. And this is much more interesting. And we can bring on more color to have that fabric. Actually, if I click on this, to save it. Go into the object mode, click on that fabric, and then maybe push some other color. Yeah, I have this glitch where just color not changing for me. So I have to keep re-clicking. And then I can look into that. And look into that area light as well. Reduce its brightness. And then look into that dome light and reduce the overall brightness. And then get more drama into that. We can have that spotlight, have it color and temperature, and do it more warm. So get a more yellowish tone in there. Increase it. And you spread it more. Then go into details and increase the softness to like 25. So we see that shadow here. It's not that sharp. And then for the grass, I can press, we have these two materials, but they are from Bridge, so they are in shader graph. So you can just press Shift C and convert that to all material nodes to presets. Click it, and then we have two more options. Convert all material nodes and replace. And now these will be replaced for nodes. So we can now jump into those and change the albedo. And I can just press color correct. Put it in between, and then hue. For those. Increase the saturation scale. And then we can have them larger. So if I go into the grass and I see these four are with, so I can press T and just scale proportionally. These will kind of grow out of there. And then have the other grass. Double click into that. Can have that albedo color correct. Drag it straight onto the line so it will place itself. And then we can hue shift again and create some sort of and then we can play with these until we get some color combination that we like. So I don't know if this would be better with some yellowish orange tone. And then we can increase the gamma. I keep the gamma. I'm just going to try to play with the level. And hue even more. And if I get the yellowish tones. I kind of like it right here. Now we can go into that grass. We can say, give me 12,000 of these actually, make it more thick. And go into those folds, make the thicken actually even less, 0.02. And that displacement, 0.05. Just back to 1 by 1. That screen's weird. Patterning. I'm gonna go again into this purple one. I'm gonna hue shift it again. Maybe switch up that hue here. For something like that. Increase the contrast. Or decrease the contrast, make it yellowish. Yeah, that's much more subtle. So without the contrast, better, feels more natural, and yeah, I quite like it. Let it run one more time, but at this point, I really like it. Hey, so in the previous video, we built out this scene. I have changed the screen. I'll provide that screen to you. We're gonna build out notification, and we're gonna create the ripple effect. So cursor is flying through us. We already done this in the past, so I've covered that in different videos, so I won't be covering this here, just so we save some time. We have a cursor, and then it disappears. It just kind of scales down. And we want to have a clicking action here. So we're just going to build notification here. We're going to create a plane. I'm just going to use plane, center it here with the placement tool. And then I'm just going to make it wider. Just going to rotate it slightly, push it like that. And then we're going to also make the height smaller. Let's take it out. So we have a notification like this, and I'm just going to increase the segments, and then I'm going to press C, and I'm going to go into point mode, highlight these corner points. We're going to do MS, so we're going to bevel. I'm just going to take the bevel. Yeah, its subdivision is fine, and this is back to object mode. And we have a rounded, nice notification. I can put it in a thicken object, make it like 0.5. Back to move tool. So we see something like this. That's fine. We can put a bevel to it. The bevel needs to be on the thicken. 0.1. So we have a nice bevel, and we increase the subdivision. So the reason why we need so much definition, and this means a lot of polygons, like a good mesh, and same what I did with the phone, is because we're gonna have to use plane effector in a point mode, and we're gonna be rippling actual points on these meshes. I'm going to show it's called notification. We have this animation now that I put these folds. So I had to put them into C, like it was the Alembic before. So I just committed by pressing C. So now it's just a mesh, because I had some issue with that Alembic. So now it's just a mesh, and we can either remove it from there. I don't think we need it. I'm just gonna create a plain object under this animation. So shift, plain object, and then go to deformer and point. Now this is crazy because if I put an object, you'll see it just kind of lifts everything up. So if I just change this, I need to remove the grass from there too. So we have a phone there, and we're gonna put into that animation now our notification too. So now we see we affecting it same way. It's gonna be just 5 in Z space, and we're gonna put in a field. So I'm just gonna put spherical field. I'm gonna place it here on the notification and make it smaller. Also make the core very small, and then into that spherical field, which is gonna go into remap, and we're gonna go into curve mode. And we'll create, by holding Control, creating more point. We create sort of ripple effect. If I make it smaller, and then go into the plane effector and change it from object to points, you see we start rippling the points. And this is the effect we want to create. But obviously this is a lot. So for demonstration, I'm just gonna do 0.1 or 0.5. And now if I use that spherical field, we'll see we're just gonna do the ripple. And then we can go into that spherical field, and in the spline offset, in that remapping section, we can, you know, animate it here, or we can create with spline range more ripples. So now I'm just gonna go to spherical field, and you see we can animate the size. So this is the size, it's 100. I can move that 100 keyframe there, and then in the beginning, and the spherical field will be 0. So now if we see the animation, so we're gonna wait for that cursor, so it's like frame 16. Okay, so I'm just gonna go here, and now I'm just gonna move that spline. I can move this vertical field a little bit down, just so it's matching the position where the cursor is going. And we can have it dissipate by controlling plane effector strength to absolute 0 right here. Now we have the effector, we have the cursor, and there's a scale. So we can make it smaller, faster. So it's just gonna bump in it. And it disappears in it. Now we can slow it down, or we can see what kind of ripples it does. So if we go to plane effector parameters, the field spherical, and then the remap section, you can reduce that spline range so it's not so. So you need to play with that effect until you find something you really like. I'm gonna turn off this Richard render view. Now we changed this material to some glassy. So I have some already materials, or we're just gonna create this standard. And I'm gonna apply this notification. Some nice transmission material. So it's gonna be glassy. Maybe we can even show in node editor. Bring in ramp. Plug it in here. And plug it into our transmission color. There we go, there's a blue notification. Can get rid of these reflections a bit. And then we decrease the amount of saturation in there. Just for the glass, we don't need it that much. Make it almost white. And we can also increase the roughness on the reflections. And so we see the deformation here on the display. We can go as well into the texture of that phone. And I'm gonna increase the roughness of the code. So I see maybe a little bit better that ripple effect. Now for that cursor, we I can actually keep these colors. Maybe I can change the spin. I change this blue. This is the material 28 Gummy Star, if you want to do it. And then if I go back to that notification and control that ramp, make it even more wide, so it's sort of transparent. Now we want to have some text on this, so I'm just gonna go and put some text in and just kind of place it in here, make it smaller. I'm just gonna go into that text. And then I'm just gonna go to my placement tool, go into Z, and we can call this notification or reminder. Can change this to SF Pro Display. It's just gonna align it a bit better. This is just we'll see that text gets affected too. If I drag it into there, it will also affect the thickness. Well, I don't know if I like it. Let's just leave it like. And under that reminder, you can write 16 new messages. In a regular and we see how this progresses. So it's kind of get bumped into it. And then we're gonna go into that notification, and we can increase subdivision, but by putting it into subdivision surface, and we get even more definition on that ripple. And put all this text into Alt G. Call it notification text. And put again constraint tag. We can set it to parent. And as a parent object, we can select this notification. and we need to put it local offset target. So subdivision surface. And if I move it, I'm moving the text with it, but the text is not inside this animation. So if I would put text in here, it would also do this to my text, which I don't want. So I want to keep text separate while still be able to animate the notification. So that's why we put in constraint tag, and in the parent, so we select the parent here. In the parent, we put the target subdivision surface, and this way I can now animate. So we have this notification here. So it's going to be here, and I can animate the coordinates Y. Okay. And that notification in subdivision, we're just going to highlight all the keyframes here and then move it up here, since we're changing all the positions at once. How we put it some nice easing. I'm going to go into my main cam. Look how it's looking. So for this notification, I'm going to create a target tag. So I'm just going to create null and press shift. So now I have a null that I can drag into, and that null is the same position as notification. I can create new camera, which will be same as my main cam because I've created highlighted the main cam, and call it animation and put the target tag on it. So putting the target tag and dragging that target null into that. So for target object, and now switching to this animation camera, and I can go around this. So I can start here, move that keyframe in the beginning, and then right about here is the end. So I'm just going to move this animation all the way here. And now I need to stop here for that happening. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create this kind of reverse. And then set ease. It's going to stop here, and then it moves away. So if I look at the whole animation, maybe I can put it all the way to the end. We can play with the object. You know, we can zoom in the beginning. And in here, I can zoom out to see the bit more of that scene. Again, we can create some nice color reverse. And then I'll create something like this. Set ease for the camera. We have this notification. We move quicker. I'm just gonna move this a little bit further back. This is maybe too much. So we want to see a little bit of that phone, at least. Maybe we can do push in, push back. We'll see. If I can set ease for the whole thing. I can set ease like that. Move that spherical field a little bit here onto the side. Maybe more central. Now, same goes for the phone. What I did, I've increased the subdivision by, highlighting all the polygons, and then you can subdivide this. But if I putting into subdivision surface, it would get more definition. But you need to make sure when you're subdividing and you're starting from that phone, you can do it the way that you have that plane. press ND just to see the polygons. And then you have a phone. So let's say something like this. And then we've had some polygons like this. So press C, commit this. Again, we're gonna do our points. So point, 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 press C. I mean MS to bevel. So like this. Let's say that we have our phone, and then when you want to create more subdivisions there, we're just gonna go Control Shift. So you can build a phone like this from the beginning, and then UF, like fill, hold Shift, click in the middle, and then we highlight all of these, and you can press U subdivide. And this is essentially how I did the phone subdivision. And because it's in ticket object, then you can just make it ticker, and it's going to be like that. And for the ticket object, I think you can increase subdivision straight there. So this is essentially what you get there. And this way you get more subdivision on that ripple effect. I don't know if I like this push in. Yeah, something more of this character. The next thing we want to do, probably improve this a bit. We create some depth of field. So we're just going to go to optical and set that target for our object. And then we create aperture smaller. And turn on the bokeh. So now we get that in the focus. While all the other stuff is out of focus. So if I go here, you should see that front and back should get nicely out of focus, and we should still see our notification clearly. Now we can put something in the background there. So I was thinking for a grid. So if I bring in grid and put it into sweep, so holding Alt and then put in inside, we have this grid. To create some sort of texture, make it smaller, and that inside maybe increase to 8 and 0.5. And then for that grid as well, we can go and create maybe 2, 2, and then push it back behind the phone. Just so we get some sort of texture. We can put some material on it. And put that glitz fire there. Just get some glossy style. Yeah, so this way we'll get some nice texture into that background. You can push it all the way to the wall and have it like that. And when we move, should still get some. We can move this one a bit forward, this one as well, just to create a little bit tighter composition where something's happening. And for that one, we can create more and stretch it alongside. Yeah, I think we can let it render and see what it does. I'm gonna try to improve that background so I can see some background of the phone, so I can see it's not ideal. Maybe increase that grid. Make it taller. Okay, so when this is finished, that's good. I can see this is out of focus quite heavily. That's not bad. And here, just kind of enters. So if I move that spline a bit, just like here. All right, I'm gonna let it render. And we're gonna do a couple more of these just so we and me will familiarize with this technique. So I'm just gonna save this and I'm just gonna render this as a render the picture viewer